The straw that broke the camel's back is, you know, you're walking up with it. Hey, one more bag? Yeah, bring it. Okay, ready? Yeah, drop it right there, okay. Well, take the bag up and do what?
Jump.
Run where, you know? So you have to be careful. So sometimes if I'm load testing a fire escape, and you have to, you load test that side, and you load test the other side. You never load test the whole thing. That way you have someplace to run in case something happens.
And plus, we also
Very
run
dangerous.
we also run the safety lines on the side.
Oh yeah, there's safety lines, you got harnesses, you got things just in case crazy things happen. So are we promoting load testing? Very costly, doesn't buy any bolts, doesn't buy any paint. A fireman got hurt on this fire escape, and he had to go save a woman and a child out of that thing, all the way up. He fell through, he had 2 or 3 checks, gave way, and he fell down, went back up, saved the woman. By the time he was done, 28 years old, he severed something in the spine, disabled the rest of his life. Uniqueness about this case, which we were part of the case, is he sued the owner directly, not for a work-related accident, but for negligence. And he got the guy, and they settled the case right after this, okay? Ready for your test? Not your test, this is proof. This is actual case, court case documentation of where rust comes from. Okay? So, once I teach you this, then you're able to say, every time you see a rusty fire escape, you're able to say what? That you have a rusty fire escape or you have structural defects.
Structure.
Right? And the reason being?
Rust comes from the inside.
Rust comes from the inside. An example of that is you can, you know, to make it simple for somebody who doesn't want to hear it, you say, when your car, does your doors rust from the outside in or the inside out? The guy will say what?
Inside.
Well, fire escapes do it the same
It's like
way.
a new car every 2 years.
There you go. That's why. So now you're looking at it, ready? This is a typical connection. Let me tell you how fire escapes are built. You buy a 20-foot long piece of steel, and you cut it into small pieces of steel, and you join them together with a weld, a rivet, or a bolt. That's how they did it 50 years ago, 100 years ago, that's how we do it today. When we take this naked piece of steel that we get from the mill, that they keep under a shed, under a roof, and you have it in your shop, and you take 2 naked pieces of steel and you put it together and you bolt it, weld it, or connect it, do you prime it before you put it together? Never. So when you put it together and you make a tread, a rail, or whatever, do you ever prime the 2 pieces where they meet?
No.
So is it going to fail sometime in its future? Rust needs 2 things, needs air and water in the form of moisture. So how do you stop air or water from getting into a connection? You seal it with paint. The average lifetime of paint from Rust-Oleum, right on their can, if you paint metal, how many years before you have to repaint it 100%? It says right on the can of Rust-Oleum. 7 years. So how many years are we forward? 75. So you got 2 pieces of metal that you seal in a piece of steel, you seal with paint, but when you put it up and somebody ignores the paint, or the paint moves, or the building shifts and the paint cracks, what have you joined together now that will form rust? Air and water that gets inside the connection. So what you're supposed to do, you're supposed to be spot painting your fire escape from the word go. As soon as you put it outside, you spot paint your fire escape year after year and fully paint it every 7. Did people do that? So you get the surface rust. Has it affected the entire connection yet? This is called surface rust. It happens in the first 5 years of your life. And if you catch it early enough, and you keep scraping that, you keep painting that, guess what happens in this connection? Nothing. It never goes bad. So you're going to find some connections out there that when you look at it, man, they may have a little bit of surface rust right up here, and then underneath it, nothing, it never came through. It's a perfect connection. How old is this bolt?
75 years?
50, 75 years. If you have rivets, they're in the 75-year-old range. If you have square head bolts, they're 50 to 75. So you've got this rivet, and they want a guarantee from you. And there's no rust in the connection. What's the only way you can give them a guarantee?
Put a secondary one.
We don't want to change bolts. What other ways? You got anything else?
Load test.
Look test. So it's easy. The thing is spectacular. It's in good to excellent condition. I only got two options for you. Load test that old bolt or rivet, or we can keep it and just behind it I can put a new bolt if you want, or I can, if it's faster, I can take out that rivet and put a new bolt for you. Now I don't need to load test it. And there's your guarantee that the city is looking for, so nobody gets sued. Sounds fair? 75 years ago they were supposed to do that, did they? No, so they didn't do that. So what happens is that the rust started to get through. As soon as rust gets through and you can visibly see, so you walk upstairs, which you've never done before, but we can show you what to look for, and you see the visible separation of something that used to be like this is now 1/16 away from each other, 1/8 away from each other. What has happened? The connection is now suspect. Can I just change the bolt and leave the rust in there? Well, that's a temporary repair, but is that a certified repair? Because if you leave the rust in there and you put a brand new bolt, what's the rust do to that new bolt of yours? It's gonna eat it. So the correct repair is 100% of all internal rust must be removed. You must prime it, and then before you put it together, should you put some silicone in there, 50-year silicone? What will that do in your future if somebody doesn't want to paint this stupid thing?
It'll help protect the.
It'll help protect the connection, meaning you basically have done to it what it should have been done 50 to 75 years ago, but they didn't have silicone. You are now, before you join the connection, you're filling it with 50-year silicone. And now, even if the client lets the fire escape surface rust, does it penetrate the connection? Right? So that's today's repair. But as soon as you see any rust in any connection, do you have a defect? So you're going to inspect the ladder, you're looking at all these treads, you look underneath, you see nothing but surface rust built up in every clip. Do you proceed with a ladder inspection? You can. Perform your ladder inspection, up and down, 2 or 3, and it passes, but it failed because now where's this thing heading? It's going to public safety. Can you come back and retest this ladder? Can you proceed any further based on what they're telling us? Because that new confidence test says, this passed, but this failed, what do we got? We got a public safety issue. Are you ever going back there that year to retest, right for a retest? It's in a whole different department, and they have a fire department, what's that person called from the fire?
Building and safety,
I'm sorry, from building and safety, there's a fire department piece of it. What's he called?
code enforcement.
I think Killian or Darryl give it a name, but this is a guy. It's part of the sign off for the permit process to the fire department of anything related, but it's not Reg 4. So you will not Reg 4 or retest that fire escape. Yes, you fill out all the forms, send it all in, but it can't come back to you. Because as soon as somebody pulls a permit to do anything related, the sign off on that, including the ladder, now happens under that permit.
Well, you know, it's interesting, and just thinking about it, you know, as they progress with the regulation side of things, with the reports, is that one of the questions that they're saying now that is, let's say for instance on the sprinkler side of it, that they're requiring permits to replace sprinkler heads or anything. They call us back for a retest. We're supposed to see that permit and record the permit number onto the regulation for retest form. I wonder if that's what they're gonna do with this, or it's just like you're saying, it's gonna be completely out of that realm.
You gotta go find that out. I'll tell you what I did in answering my fire escape side of things, and that's what I was told. I says, great, let's get the word out. It seems to fit that says if you're gonna pull a permit on this,
Right.
because it's major structural repair, and maybe there's gonna be 2 categories. What is a maintenance repair and what is a structural repair? One doesn't require a permit, the other one does require a permit, because then somebody's gotta sign it off. Who's signing off?
Right.
And in the sign off, are they saying that not only do they want the public safety to sign off on the permit, they want the retester to come back in and start the process again? Well, then state that. State that it's already passed a general permit sign off,
Right.
and now the retester is just basically coming in, and is that an additional cost to the client that shouldn't be dealt with because under the permit sign-off, shouldn't that all be done under the permit sign-off?
Yeah, no,
Well,
yeah.
who's answering that question? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's a good question to ask. Guys, this is what happens when a 1/4 inch of rust grows. And then all of a sudden, it pushes the clip far enough away from the rivet so that because prior to this, the rivet was there, the rust was in there, but what was sitting on top of the rivet? The clip. And so that when the clip tried to fall, guess what kept it from falling? But you keep pushing it rust and you get out to the end, what happens? And you got a 1/4 or 1/2 inch of rust between you now and the clip, and there's no longer that rivet there holding the button in place. What happens? You push it out far enough, what happens? You step on it during one of your walkthroughs, and what happens to you?
Breaks.
This is the rust we found when we went back to inspect this guy's fire escape that the fireman fell through. As I was walking up, my foot was dropping treads. This is all with us full of lawyers. This is 3 years later, after the guy fell through. We were called in to be an expert witness. So they fixed the treads that he fell through, but everything else stayed the same. So they lost the case and they immediately settled. I want to show you for impact. Oh, I thought usually I show the hammer test again, but this is how all fire escapes are built in the United States. Every single one, East Coast to West Coast, this is how they built. 8 to 12 inches deep into the wall through the veneer. So every time you're looking at a busted up cement situation, 8 to 12 inches deep only.
So that would be suspect.
Exactly. And here you have missing pieces, so one seat channel is only buried 8 to 12 inches deep into the wall, and it's missing its arm. Yet it's carrying all these staircases with all these broken treads. So you put enough weight on this, what do you think is gonna happen with this much outside the building and only 8 to 12 inches deep into the wall, and you load it with firemen and people? This is the arm, and it has either a bolt or a gusset on the end. And at the very bottom, this is what happens when water is driven into the building. On the arm, those rot out too. This is what it looks like when you have a through bolt into the building. Very few of these masonry buildings have these through bolts, as I mentioned before. And sometimes these through bolts start eating the brick. Get pulled through. Huge water issues. As soon as you can grow ferns and plants on your fire escape, you've got problems. But this is also, if you're looking to grow certain kinds of ferns and plants,
Yeah, that might be a good idea.
this is where you would do it. Because nobody will ever suspect to look at a fire escape for your illegal fern. Unless you're in the triangle up in San Francisco, then you can grow these openly. So a lot of rust, this is what happens. Look at all that pop, the heads and the bolts are still there, but they're gone. It's false. This is a library in Boston for kids. 1 inch of rust on that gusset. Again, if you're growing ferns, fire escapes are a great place to grow ferns. Nobody will ever suspect to look at the fire escape. Fire escape, these are systems to the ground, so if they're not bolted to the building, they can be legged to the building. But this is what happens, as I mentioned before, this is a scrape and paint violation only, until you look underneath it, and then what was it? Right? So that's why a critical evaluation. When a truck hits your fire escape, this is what happens to the veneer. So a lot of guys will fix the veneer. They will not fix what's inside because the damage is inside, not on the veneer. This is a wood structure. All wood structures have a through bolt. Some masonry walls have through bolts, but not many. Cantilevers. We've done the mother theory, right? See what the release arm looks like? Single action requiring no special knowledge. What's important there is that the bar blocks your passage. So even if you don't know what to do, you're gonna push that bar out of the way, that bar is gonna twist down below and release the cantilever to drop down. That's a simple release arm. And also stops people from breaking into your building, because if you throw a rope up, can you pull the nose down if it has no release arm?
Yeah.
With a release arm, you can't break into the building anymore, so it's also a safety issue. So now you see what happens, remember that trash truck backing up? If this thing is out of balance and pointing down, it's gonna rip that whole fire escape down to the ground. See what happens with the release arm open and the chain? So if this thing didn't have that chain, that thing would be pointing to the sky and automatically get a violation. So for $25, you go to Home Depot, put a chain there, tie it there, and even with the thing open, is it balanced? All kinds of wacky things happen on fire escapes. Trash truck hits. Okay.
You find that wherever you go, if you see something like this, you start looking at it and paying real close attention.
Oh, yeah.
Same too, if I see sprinklers, I'm always looking at the fire alarm.
Well, now that you've had this fire escape class, you will see more fire escapes than you've ever seen in your life.
Right. Mhm.
They'll stop popping up right at
They'll
you.
stop.
Yeah, I'll be giving you all kinds of leads.
Because well, that's a great line. I'll be giving you all kinds of leads. It ain't gonna happen. You'd think that you'd walk into a building and say, hey, nothing, I'm your sprinkler guy, just so your fire escape in the back doesn't look so hot, you should have it inspected. They're like, yeah, thank you. The one that has to know what they're doing is the city official, who happens to be on a sprinkler call, doing whatever, and that's why we teach this nationwide. You're on your sprinkler call, you're doing your thing, you're going back to your vehicle, you happen to walk in the back of the building, you look up. Now that you know the telltale signs of abuse of a fire escape, you're like, hey, the fire escape doesn't look so hot. You go, no, I'll get it painted. Well, you got more problems than just a paint job here. The fact that you let it rust this much, every one of these connections is suspect, so I need you to have it properly inspected by a structural engineer, have the report given to me, and I gotta write you a violation on this. Oh, that guy, he wants a result now. There's no opinion, I'll get to it when I can, so it's not, up to the owner's discretion whether he's gonna do something. No owner wants to go spend money, because you said, keep an eye on the back. So staircases, what holds an entire staircase is the stringer gussets. So every now and then you walk down fire escapes, your treads are not the problem, the whole staircase can give on you. This is a Chicago 25-story building, hotel. The staircase is not even connected. Yet it's still there. What's holding it is the rails are holding it in position. But you load that with men, firemen, and people, and the whole staircase is gonna drop 10 people. How many years?
25 to 50.
All right, you guys press it then.
Pay attention.
Right? All original hardware, no evidence of maintenance. Trash truck damage, backing up trucks, moving trucks. We usually send every one of them a Christmas bonus, all the trash truck drivers. Yeah. The guys with the big thick glasses, we give them always extra. Everything gets looked at, guys. Every single piece of the fire escape. Rust growing on a rail, suspect. Rust growing on the bottom of a rail, suspect. Treads and grading, separators and rust in the connection, suspect, right? Automatically fails the structure. Because if you pass the ladder portion, and you don't note this, and you pass the ladder, they take that as a fire escape assembly that passed. Somebody traps their foot on this, falls through here, what happens to you? Then try to explain yourself. No, we didn't inspect the fire escape. Yes, you did. You walked it. Any rust you see anywhere, on a joint, in a connection, they can still pass their ladder. But did they pass the Reg 4 test? No. Because now the confidence test has yes, no's in it, doesn't it? Does it remind you of anybody? They ever had yes, no questions before? So now they have yes, no questions, and 75% of the yes, no questions relate to the ladder, 25% relate to the fire escape and what that means. Any no's in that test, so your ladder can do well. But what it's attached to did not, so you failed your Reg 4 ladder test. which is kind of confusing, because the guy I didn't bring you here for a fire escape test. I brought you here for a load test, I mean, a Reg 4 test on my ladder. Okay, well, see the questions I have to answer here? Yes. Oh, no, automatically, boom. Those no's are on what page?
Well,
Second page.
depends on if it's a specific question on the new form.
Exactly.
If not, it'll be on that section 5,
Exactly.
right to the building and safety.
Exactly. So that's it. So if you're answering no to a specific question that you did say no,
Right.
and then otherwise it's one of your observations,
Either way, it's going to building and safety.
and either way, you're not Reg 4 testing anymore. You're not coming back anytime soon. Because now what's there is permittable and subject to the load test or the other evidence of strength. Which is Reg 4 asking for that? Are they asking for a load test or Reg 4 other evidence of strength?
No.
So this is truly a building department issue. But is it referenced anywhere back to fire code? 4604.17.
Of course.
So you bring them in anyway? And is it anything to do with Reg 4?
Nope.
Is it to do with the fire station?
Nope.
Is it,
Well, they're the authority having jurisdiction. but
well, they
They're
are.
generating it too.
They're saying, no, go kick it out to these guys first, so you do. So
Right.
the building department has their code, which we've listed here. And so there's a load test or other evidence of strength, and you're still gonna drag in fire prevention. You'll say, hey, fire prevention, your 4604.17 is gonna be satisfied here. So whether they knew they were gonna get dragged in or not, aren't you dragging them in?
Yeah.
Say, hey, hang out, there's a big party going on. You know what I'm saying? Is Reg 4 involved?
Yep.
Reg 4?
Well,
Once it goes to permit?
No.
Nope, they're out of the picture. They're in the picture once you get through the cycle.
Right.
And as soon as you sign off that permit, isn't that the yearly cycle from there on? Or is it back to
No,
the,
from the initial test.
so that's the other point. Sometimes you have somebody that is tested every February, and you fix their fire escape in January, guess what happens? February, they have to start the Reg 4 testing again, even though it just got signed off a month before. That's another piece you have to remember on your test. It's good. So, and you see any of this on any fire escape, are you gonna pass that, Reg 4?
Definitely.
How many years?
25 to 50.
This is a elementary school. Every day, kids were coming up and down this to get into school. How many years?
50 to 70.
There you go.
That's 50 to 70.
How many years? Amazing, right? 3/4 plus, not 1 inch. Ladders too, guys. The ladders are an important part. You guys know these, right? Seen these? In the area?
Well,
Up in San Francisco they have, but
I've never
every,
seen any of those down here.
it's basically a standard ladder. You release that and 4 sections
Right,
slide
so
down. Telescoping ladder. See the release arm up above and stuff?
We see a lot of the, like those, yeah.
Accordion ladders, mainly up in San Francisco.
They have a lot of them down here in downtown.
Yeah, not a lot, but a handful here and there, right?
In fact, we had one the other day that we dropped, it didn't go all the way down to the ground.
Exactly, it has to go to the ground and hit the ground, right?
It was like, how do they build this thing? It's like on a cable or something to adjust it, right?
Yeah.
So something like that, a repair like that, that's a maintenance repair, correct?
Correct. Again, it's hard to explain now. You're no longer being asked, your Reg 4 has changed.
Yeah,
Because of that form, 75% is questions about this ladder.
right.
25% asks you to give an opinion of what it's attached to and you think it's safe. So if all of a sudden you give an erroneous opinion, you think, well, that looks safe to me, and you sign off that ladder, and something happens on the rest of the fire escape, what did you just do?
Well, we're not signing off just on the ladder though, now.
I
We're
know.
signing off on the.
So I'm asking you, You
Oh,
looked
yeah.
up and you said, it doesn't look that bad, I'm gonna say it's okay.
Right.
And you signed off on the ladder, what did you just do?
Well, we signed off on the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what kind of critical examination should be done on the backside?
Yeah.
That was one of the things that Inspector Killian spoke with me about, that says most likely they're gonna be going to the 5-year rule. San Francisco does it. They have the 1-year rule on ladders, they have the 5-year rule on the whole system by a structural engineer. They believe not to limit your liability and scope on the back. Your opinion of whether it's attached to, could that get you into some trouble legally?
Yeah.
So, you understand, you're kind of now saying, I will certify this ladder, because it is good, it does drop 2 to 3 feet per second, but I'd rather bring in somebody else now just to give me a quick eyeball on this, and it's gonna cost you extra. It's either a structural engineer that the owner gets in on the rest of the structure, or you hire somebody to come in and give you an opinion on the rest of it? And is that controlled under Reg 4? It's an independent inspection by a structural engineer or a firescape engineer, having nothing to do with Reg 4. But now that Reg 4 is starting to step into that, they see the landmine that you could be stepping on. So that 25% that now changed onto that form, you now need to work backwards and say, hey, I really don't have enough expertise to tell you about the rest of this. That really needs to have somebody that is licensed in structural or firescape. So fixed ladders, you see a lot of these, right?
That's
Hydraulic.
hydraulic.
No, it's weight balance,
Oh,
cable.
yeah, I don't see a lot of them with the weights hanging off the side of them, but within the tracks. Maybe.
Yeah, within track. Well, that's a very good point. Cable snaps, what happens to this?
I think we did see one recently like that,
Yeah.
didn't we? That had like that cement weight hanging off the side of it.
Yeah. So what
It was
happens?
It was just free hanging. too.
That's right.
It wasn't even guided or anything.
That's right, so if it's not guided, you pass it? And if it doesn't have a release arm on it, because in case the cable snap, what stops this thing from dropping if the
Yeah.
cable's dropped?
Yeah.
So, why do you need a release, a latch on ladders
Right.
that are either hydraulic or weight balanced? Because if there's a failure on the hydraulic or the cable, what keeps it there?
Nothing.
The release.
Oh, the release, yeah.
So, and these weights are supposed to be on guides. In case the weights go, where do they stay? On the guide. Otherwise, they plop off and do what?
Yeah.
Hit somebody on the head. And then the thing guillotines down and hits them on the head.
We did see
You guys have to check everything over to the roof. How often do you climb all the way to the roof?
that every time.
Very dangerous, isn't it?
That's indicated.
Scary. Because now,
He's gotten over his fear.
but wait, but are you dropping this 2 to 3 feet per second?
No, that's the fixed gooseneck over
Well, wait a second, you're confusing me. You're a Reg 4 tester. What are you inspecting this for?
the top. Well, they ask us about it now.
Ah, they're asking you about it now. But is this part of the ladder system down below, or is this part of the fire escape system?
That's the fire escape.
So do you really need to climb up and down these things?
Yeah.
No, you don't.
Well, as far now, but they're asking us specific
Okay,
questions.
let me give you some, I need to keep you safe, so can I go to the roof and look at this?
Yeah.
Do I have to go up and over? Or can I just lean over? In leaning over, and I see nothing but original hardware,
Right.
square head bolts or rivets. Okay, you're gonna grab your utility knife and open that up and see how it's attached?
No way.
So what is the proper way to load test this?
Live load.
Are you gonna do anything right there and then on your inspection? And is this suspect because you see no evidence of maintenance? It's 50 to 75 years. Is it suspect?
Yeah.
Only to be confirmed by a load test or other evidence of strength. You've looked at it, you see any other evidence of strength on this thing?
So what about if you?
Let's stay on the target here. Do you need do you need anything else? Do you need to put your live load? I've showed you all the live load testing of all the people that are dead. You want that? So now is a visual opinion saying that I got nothing but original hardware, 50 to 75 years old. I cannot tell you whether it works or not because I'm not about to climb over. There's no evidence of strength or other evidence of satisfactory strength, so I'm not climbing over this thing. And I'm telling you that a load test is the only cure for this thing. So whenever you walk up to a fire escape, you see no evidence of maintenance. Can you already pass that fire escape?
No.
So then you go up and over, and you don't go up and over, you go down and you climb up, and you look up the ladder to the roof, and you see square head bolts. What do you say?
Fail.
Fail, because it has what do you call it? Original hardware. Now, how can I guarantee, because that original hardware, I'm looking for rust connections, probably, and it doesn't have any. So how can I certify that for you?
Live
Load test.
Right.
So if they want the guarantee, a live load test is coming. So every yearly inspection is gonna automatically bring you a 5-year load test, isn't it? So I look up and I see this thing down below. You guys ever seen these ladders where they chop it and break it into 2 pieces and flop it up? Okay, be careful of these, because this is a modified ladder system where you actually push this thing out and it swings out and hits the ground. What happens if you have to be on the ground underneath it as a child, a dog, or a fireman?
That's not good.
Wrong place, wrong time, you're gonna get smashed in the head. So look out for modified ladders, because when they flop out, they do that.
Yeah.
So this is some of the things that the city officials have been doing. They've been taking permits and tying this all in. They've been doing the 3 to 5 year program. We've done training with housing authorities, building inspectors, fire prevention. We record every single session whenever possible, and do what? Make it public. Once we make it public, what happens? It's common knowledge. Once it's common knowledge, what can't you do?
Can't claim ignorance.
Can't claim ignorance, can't go back. Washington DC, you know, Obama land, right? When we get in there and do what? These are all fire prevention. You know how many violations they wrote that year prior to this inspection, to this training? You would expect these guys with, with all the requirements and the capital, that they would be doing everything to keep everybody safe with so many, homeland security, blah, 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 and we get there and we find them. So, but we've taught classes in Portland, Oregon, New Jersey, Chicago, Texas, and we find the same thing. But we record it, put it up online, they can't claim ignorance. And then you need to, one inspector at a time. We mentioned that. You can build a relationship with your local inspector, and if your forte is sprinklers, if your forte is water pumps, I highly recommend you start recording a lot of your inspections and put them up on your website. And a lot of these people is how to inspect a water pump, how to properly inspect a sprinkler, what to look for. Record a bunch of these things and put them up online. When you do a how to inspect a fire escape, what do you find? Fire escape services, fire escape engineers. Why? Because we're the only ones putting out videos on how to do this and how to do that. So we set the bar where? Otherwise, you want an opinion, you pay for what you get. So Tacoma, does this confidence test look like to anybody you know?
Yeah.
Is it back to the yes, no's? That's the Tacoma checklist. We loved it, so we incorporated it yearly. Who does it? Joe Schmo regular. We put the burden of proof on the owner to walk his fire escape every year. Structurally, every 5 by a structural engineer, but we make the owner with a city official who does the yearly inspections on that commercial building. We make the owner say, it's a great line. We get a chuckle out of this every time we're in fire prevention class. So you got your yearly inspection and you walk up to the client and say, hey, how's your fire escape? He goes, great, great. Who's gonna walk it? And they're like, what do you mean? Well, I need somebody to go to the roof, climb over the gooseneck, come down the whole fire escape, activate the ladder or the cantilever and walk down to the ground, and then reset the system for me, please. And give me my yearly. You know what happens then? Because you've been doing it for free. They say, well, my maintenance guy doesn't want to do it, so who do they call? A Plus. Yeah, we got that yearly. Can you come down? Well, yeah, you're ready for us in February. Yeah, I know, but the guy's here and he wants that stupid yearly paper there. Yeah, we'll come down. $8, $9, whatever you want to charge them to. Basically, you can send your slave son over, up and over the roof. I'll be right down. Son, get your backpack on.
I'll be waiting down here.
I'll be waiting.
Your parachute on, yeah.
So, that's what this is about, great ideas. These are all things that, again, we're in an industry that nobody's doing anything about it, so,
Do the fire authorities contact you for training, or do you contact fire authorities? How do you get in there to do this?
both. We again, since that Channel 7 news report, we just started introducing ourselves. My very first seminar I ever taught was in Newton, Massachusetts, to the Home Inspector Association. They needed a speaker. And then, bing, a light went off. I says, oh, man. So then I started calling up housing inspectors, building inspectors, who have association meetings once a month. Said, hey, you need a speaker? Yeah, how much? I want a cup of coffee and a donut. Outrageous. With sprinkles? Yeah, with sprinkles. And then I started flying anywhere around the country, and a lot of times I coordinate my flights with a class. So if I'm going to Seattle, I'll say, hey, I can do a class, it's free, and I wiggle in any way I can, and then, and so you're looking at the first ever sponsored one, which is now, I'm now waiting for them. I now call them and say, hey, I'm having a class in your area, would you like to attend? And Darryl Bolden was supposed to be here, but he couldn't make it, but it's one of those. Some will attend, some will not attend, but it's getting recorded anyway, and it's gonna be up online. But this is the repairing procedures, but I just wanted to say, I got this out of a cookie, a fortune cookie. A sure way to predict the future is to invent it. Isn't that what we're doing here? So if it ain't been done for me, I'll do it myself, and as long as it makes sense. So that's what we did here. Right now, this is what the city of Boston has been, that I have to sign for the city of Boston. And this is that document that I made with the help of a state building official from Massachusetts. In Boston, all they ask of me is, says right there, to the best of my knowledge, information, and belief, the fire escape egress is in conformity with the Mass Building Code. Is this a guarantee or an opinion?
That's an opinion.
Can I get sued on this opinion? I can't, but I'll win because they asked me for my opinion. They don't ask me to load test, even though the code is very clear that it says on here, 1001.3, and we read 1001.3, it says, examine or test and certify, but they're not forcing the load test. They're also not reading. But the classes that I've been having, there's 4 associations in Massachusetts. I've had classes in all 4 associations, so every building inspector that belongs to an association in Massachusetts has had one of these classes, whether you attended or not, because I can send them a link to the class. So now, whether Boston wants to follow this or not, or eventually follow this in law or not, I got smaller cities that are doing what? Reading the code and saying, you know what, that is exactly what it says. I am the authority having jurisdiction. You know what? I want some guarantees. So, bring it on. Give me a load test or other evidence of strength. And currently, right now, if you spot repair your fire escape, I still want my load test. You give me a refurbished fire escape, because the majority of them are 50, 75 years old, they've never been refurbished anyway, you're heading down that road anyway. So you give me that, we avoid the load test. But that's the only thing I have to fill out for Boston. But a majority of the cities, okay, the majority of the cities in Massachusetts are now, one at a time, basically saying, give me the load test or the other evidence of strength. And this is our law, our code. All exterior steel wooden stairs. So guys, fire escapes and wooden stairs. How much work is involved in exterior wooden stairs here in California? Forget steel. How many wooden stairways you have here in California that fall into this code? Not Mass Code, this is the International Building Code, International Fire Code, and in the NFPA. All exterior stairways. How many you got here in California that need to be tested? So this is the tip of the iceberg, and we're focusing on fire escape, but eventually, what's this gonna hit?
Residential.
Every exterior steel or wooden stair. Because that's what it says here, right? Now watch.
Yeah.
This is how big our market is in Massachusetts. That is not a market yet. It says in your code, all exterior bridges. So if you have any little stupid bridge in your property that it doesn't belong to the state, I have to inspect it. Steel or wooden stairways. Have I mentioned fire escapes yet? Everything that's exposed to the weather, the code says you gotta test it and certify it. Fire escapes, where they are, or they also say egress balconies, so all those Romeo and Juliet balconies, what do they need? Testing. How big is the market?
Pretty big.
Ginormous. Must be examined and or tested and certified. What's this word mean? Two ways you can get this. Go test or refurbish. Any other way? The law already says that. Examined and or tested and certified. So you're certifying the test or you're certifying the examined, other evidence of strength, every 5 years by a Massachusetts registered professional engineer or others qualified and acceptable to the building official, who shall then submit an affidavit, which is a fire escape confidence test, to the building official, who is the authority having jurisdiction, shall be permitted to approve any fire escape instead that has been shown by load test or other evidence of strength. So how big can you make it in every market? As big as you want. How do you eat an elephant? That's right, one bite at a time. So with all three codes here, talk about the confidence tests. Repair criteria, it's right in your book, right? So you wanna know how to fix a fire escape? It's very difficult. Let me tell you how to fix a fire escape. Ready? I gave you a repair criteria. And it's very simple. Any connection, ready? All original hardware identified or not in the report as major critical connections will be repaired, reinforced or replaced, scraped, wire brushed, spot primed, and sealed with 50-year silicone as per contract, as per industry standard. So everything says remove the rust and repaint it. So all this inspection criteria says all original hardware needs to be replaced, reinforced, sealed. That's the extent of the repair criteria. Okay? So, this is great. We taught the city of Lowell. Gave them a class. Guess what they put in with your tax record? So a class, your tax records, everybody in the city got one of these that says if you have a fire escape, you must have it inspected. So some of our classes do what in the city? Oh, generate activity, we call it.
Okay.
You don't call it revenue. We call it activity.
Got it.
These are some of the letters we write. We go out every time we have an inspection request on any city. We always send this letter to the inspector saying, hey, we're about to inspect something in your city. Are we qualified or not? And here's our inspection criteria. Do you agree or disagree with it? And this is basically a conversation to lead them to, do you want a load test or other evidence of strength? Makes it easy. To whom it may concern. We're doing a load test in your area. We're gonna do all these things and give you all this documentation. We're gonna follow these repair procedures. This is one of our typical inspection reports.
No, there's one.
Okay.
You guys wanna see some crazy fire escapes out there? You ever see a slidescape? This is a 12-story slidescape.
Slidescape.
It's right here. And down at the very bottom, you go into a straight slide with your feet first, and you smash into a door panel that opens up into an area that leads you to the street. These two doors right here, that's the roof. And every floor below has those same two doors that you open up and you look down.
Ooh, scary.
Disneyland ride.
Yeah.
And you go in without a potato sack, head first or tail first, whatever way, because you gotta jump in. There's no like little landing and get yourself ready. It's like, hey, go. And like, whoa! And then dark, like you wouldn't believe. This is the flash that can't see. After a while, you can't see. It's called a slidescape. And this is typical of buildings in the 1900s that were Art Deco buildings, and that's what that is. an
How
Art
wide
Deco
are they?
building.
How wide?
And acceptable. This is a an acceptable means of egress. You can't build them today, but if you find one of these, you gotta certify this one.
Yeah, a big person could get stuck in
Oh, no,
Log up there.
you'll get punched through, believe me. You pack enough kids there, you're gonna, I don't care how wide you are, you're going down. So, again, industry standards, industry documentation, industry reporting, engineer oversight, everything is about marking, you know what I'm saying? So, tags, confidence tests. So, if there's no standard, create the standard. Now, every fireman is safe when they get to a place and they see a white tag. They're not gonna be worried about this. You guys ready? That's the old way of getting off a building. How about skyscrapers? Everybody was concerned about,
If you live in a high-rise building, you've probably at least wondered how you would get out of there if there was a fire. Those fears became all too real for thousands of Americans on September 11th. Many were trapped in the World Trade Center towers as the floors below them burned. Well, now inventors are working on new technology to help people get out alive. Ari Otzer has a look at one invention. Hey, come on.
And down he goes. Looks simple, and it is. The Recover-All high-rise evacuation system being tested on this day by firefighters.
I think this is impressive. It's pretty easy to set up, it's easy to use, it's hands-free
Up to 50
operation,
stories.
it's self-contained. I think it'll work.
Our equipment was designed specifically to be used by senior citizens, by children. That's why we chose the device, and it's fully automatic in operation. That's why we enclose the victim inside a full coverage suit.
so you can hold a child inside, a dog
First
inside.
step for evacuation
You
is putting
jump
on
off,
a big suit.
drops you 2
Kinda
to
makes
3
it
feet
look
per
like a
second.
potato, but this actually
These units
protects
cost
you
anywhere from
heat
$2,500
flames
to
if you're in a real
$5,000 a
fire
piece,
situation.
depending on how
The
high
firefighters
you're
let us
gonna
go
go.
for a test ride. Picture one of these machines on your condo balcony ready to use, or in your high-rise office.
Self-evacuation.
stored away
This is not a
for
means of egress, this is a third means of egress for self-evacuation out of a high-rise.
Once you push back and let go, the machine lowers you gently to the ground at the rate of 3 feet per second.
When you drop on one side, the other back comes back up, so you can use it over and over again.
Same rate, all the way down to the ground.
Got it?
So the obvious question on everyone's mind is, would this system have made any difference in the World Trade Center disaster?
My personal opinion is this would have saved some people up there, absolutely. This cable, they said, it was effective up to 1,000 feet. That's 100 floors.
Lieutenant Mike Nugent was there, part of the South.
That's $2,500 to $5,000. It's about $2 million to $5 million for one of these. Again, third means of egress. But for high-rise systems, high-rise buildings, already approved. This is in Israel, already working on a 22-story building. Fully automated, totally controlled by the fire department. That's the secret, collapsible elevator. Fire department controls everything. Again, third means of egress. You've already evacuated buildings, you've already used all the stairs, elevators. This is when everybody got trapped and everybody went to the roofs. You couldn't come down for whatever reason. Third floor is demolished from an explosion or something. This is how you get people off. It's a third means of egress. $2 to $5 million for one of these systems. Puts firemen into the building right away.
And you got friends.
It takes 30 to 50 people per box, depending on the size of the box. But you can get multiple floors, as you can see, are being evacuated as we speak. So you're taking out of the building 50 to 150 people at a time. So while the firemen are fighting the fire, there's a rescue mission going on. $2 to $5 million.
And these are only working right now in Israel?
Yeah, they're trying to get them into the United States, already approved for use in the United States, but it's $2 to $5 million. Now, if you're buying a $3 million condo on some high rise. You don't think that would be cool for them to say, by the way, stairs? Thank you. Technology. Do you guys like that? They're available online. Search on the high-rise escapes. That guy's he's out of Israel. And he won right after the 9/11. He invented that, and he's been trying to put it into America. Another piece of the puzzle, and that is a lot of people don't realize in a lot of these schools, when you have the fire drills, 2 a month, and if your building has a fire escape, you're supposed to use the fire escape with the kids. Required by law. You're supposed to use the closest egress system. Okay, so fire drills. So we went over the codes. I think we've beaten the codes to death. Now, all exterior steel or wooden stairs, and this is the end of our class. Is this exterior steel or wooden stairs? 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 Egress balconies. Exposed to weather. Exterior. Is this exterior? Is this exterior? Is this exterior? Are these exterior? Catwalks and such, are they exterior? Are these exterior? Are these exterior? Are these egresses? Are these exposed to weather? Are these exterior? Are these exterior? Oh my God, we got a marketplace that's how big? Is it $1 billion industry? Who's tapping into it? This is other forms of slides they used to have on buildings before they were outlawed.
It's like McDonald's right there.
Yeah. These are some of the other supplemental evacuation systems that we talked about. They're not second means of egress. They're bag ladders and such that you buy. Okay? Lights, as they say, and questions and concerns, because it's a lot of information that just got blasted at you.
Definitely made us a lot more aware of what we should be looking for.
And how much liability you're carrying
Yeah,
that you didn't realize you were carrying.
yeah, that's for sure. I'm gonna ask you on the hydraulic ladders, they have retrieval cables. The cable hooks are not allowed to be attached permanently to the ladders.
Correct.
Are they?
Correct. And again, what we found, we have not been able to successfully fix a hydraulic ladder system.
Yeah.
They're 50 to 75 years old. It's a poor design to begin with. They leak all over the place, and if you were to leave them without that cable, they fall to the ground all the time.
Yeah.
So, is it a repair project? I'm gonna repair it or replace it, or modify it with any other form of reduction, because that's the only thing you can do. So our norm is that we get into a hydraulic system we don't even try to fix it. We use the hydraulics as nothing but a guide now for the ladder.
Counterbalance.
Well, the counterbalance is exactly it. There's two counterbalances. Weight counterbalances on cabling, or we actually use a retrieval system that once you put it on, the centrifuge on that, when you release it, properly protected, and with a release arm, it drops it at 2 to 3 feet per second. So the cable still stays on it now.
Right.
But now you're using it when you release it, because as it starts unwinding, it actually slows the thing down and hits the ground. Because we cannot fix hydraulics. Have you been able to fix hydraulics?
Well, I mean, you can get them to drop a little better, you know, by removing the old hydraulic fluid.
Stop trying to fix them, they
Yeah.
can't be fixed.
How
It's,
about
it's impossible.
So those, a lot of times we'll get calls, or not a lot recently, but in the past, through the years, I have run into this. Those hydraulic ladders leak because the
Yes.
seals are not properly redone as often as they should be. They leak, and then with the accumulation of the oil, it turns into grease. You know, we'll write them up because obviously it's a slip and fall type of thing. If somebody were to grab onto that, they're just gonna fly off of it. So we'll go in and scrape it all off. But now you've brought to my awareness, now we're scraping off probably what paint was on there too. Whether or not it was lead-based or not.
It is
never-
lead-based.
Never even
The
came to my
EPA says right there,
consideration.
anything older than 78 is presumed to have lead unless the owner gives you a document by a state licensed lead inspector, which has nothing to do with fire escapes or Reg 4 or anybody. And he says, I've tested it and it either has low lead or no lead. And you have to, in order to touch it or play with it, paint it, you have to have a renovator's license, which you should get right away. It's an easy course, $150 to $300 for a weekend, or they do.
It's a day, what, 8 hours?
Yeah, just put in EPA renovator's license, California, and it'll show you like 60 people in the area that are giving the class every so often.
They all have them in a hotel room like this.
Yeah, they'll have it, you just come in.
So how do you, I mean, how would you handle something like that? You get a call from, you know, a customer downtown. They've got a ladder, they've been written up for excessive grease on the ladder. The first step you would have to take, if you're not an EPA inspector, is you'd have to bring in an EPA. So you would tell that client, you would say, I can't touch that ladder unless it's certified by an EPA inspector.
No, it's not certified, you're going,
Or
no repairs can be done to this fire escape, whether it be painting or repairs. If it's paint only, it has to be somebody with an EPA renovator's license, which you can go get. So you are the guy that's gonna deal with it. But now your next question is this a permittable activity? Usually painting is not. There's no permits needed for painting. So, but again, every time, the biggest concern that we have here is you're dealing with a ladder system that as soon as you have to repair it, are they requesting that you have a permit on it?
Yeah.
And you have to have repair criteria submitted to who? Fire prevention or building and safety?
Building safety.
Because you're gonna pull a permit. As soon as you go there, does Reg 4 have anything to do with this anymore? No. It's still your client, you're just bringing in the next phase of it, which is now, you need to get this fire escape back to the 5-year certification for the whole entire system, and once that happens, you can do the yearlies from now on. But then, most likely, within the next 3 to 5 years, as told to us by Reg 4, they're probably gonna implement the 5-year rules similar to San Francisco.
Have you been told, you know, per Regulation 4, or even just the state of California, state fire marshal or anything, if I'm going out and inspecting a fire escape assembly, which includes some sort of drop ladder assembly, and I turn around and I'm looking at the fire escape and I say, in my opinion, it looks okay, but the counterweighted weight box is completely rotted out and needs to be replaced. Is that a permit situation?
Yes.
Because you're actually replacing anytime I'm replacing parts on it or altering it or repairing it in any way.
Based on their statements and the nationwide statement, if I'm just painting a pristine fire escape that has passed a confidence test, there's no permit required. But now the only thing required in painting that fire escape is you have to have an EPA renovator licensed person paint that fire escape, and that could be anybody. The building owner could have a maintenance guy who has taken a renovator's class and he's going to paint it for you. So that's how simple the painting process is going to be, and no permit is required. the fact that you need to be EPA certified is the only new requirement now touching something older than 1978. Oh, but I have to change bolts. Now you're crossing a line. City official says, we need permit income. We need you to pull a permit. They'll make it pull a permit if you're changing a light bulb. So now it's permit. As soon as it pulls a permit, you need to bring in the second half of your company, which is saying, you know, I have really two things that I'm inspecting. 75% of this yes/no document really pertains to everything related to the fire escape, ladder and cantilever, correct? Does it have any, 75% of this Reg 4 test, does it have anything to do with the gooseneck up above? No. 25% now says, take a look around and give me an opinion. But are they giving you any disclaimer on there? No. So now you have to have some expertise, and you should be careful on what you're saying is okay, because they're really wrapping up a little bit of your knowledge about the fire escape assembly system. So it's a little dangerous to say, it looks good to me, because now, should anything happen on that other 25%, what happens? Fireman going up over the ladder, coming down, and the thing goes, whoa! They're gonna say, who did this last inspection? A plus.
That's what you're worried about.
A plus comes in and says, well, dude, I just did the ladder and I answered your questions and I looked at it, looked all right to me. You're most likely gonna win, you know, because you're gonna come in and say, hey, it's not asking me to load test it, it's not asking me, but you're involved in this dragged out lawsuit that's gonna eat what?
Yeah.
Time and money. That's what's happening with us in Chicago. We're dragged in whether we like it or not simply because we signed the last document off. So here, and now we're learning. So well, with all this that we learned, and from me being in, this is one of the reasons why fire escape awareness is where it is. I was sitting in a room with 8 lawyers with their pointy fingers going, what? Who do they want to hang? And I came back and said, hey, Chicago says, perform a critical evaluation. They don't tell me to perform a load test. And they asked me to give you an opinion letter. Can they hang me on an opinion? And thank God my letters that I wrote had disclaimers. My disclaimers say nobody's enforcing load tests or other evidence of strength. You see where that comes? So the huge liability associated with anybody that you're subbing out to has to be, are they really following the law on something that is life safety? So if somebody can get hurt, everybody goes to court. As soon as you bring guarantees, it's hard for them to drag you to court when you did everything possible. You know what I'm saying? So if a fire sprinkler passes a test and then somehow it fails on the day that it needed to work, one of the heads failed, it's a manufacturer's problem. Because it did pass a test, and then every year it's passed the test and that thing never blew, but the day it finally charged up, all the sprinklers worked except that one in that room. Well, then as soon as you take that one out, it's a manufacturer's defect situation. Because it passed a load test. How can they say you didn't do your job? Say, I did my job. And every time we tested it never failed.
But we'll still get sued.
Oh, you're still gonna get sued, but now
Yeah.
you're way back in the line because the manufacturer, because you automatically sue the manufacturer. So the manufacturer's in there now trying to claim, oh, you know, the water pressure and certain impurities in the water cause the thing to corrode and oxidize and blah, blah, blah. But that's their deal. Because they were trying to blame it on you. I said, no. Now, if you never performed the load test and signed off on it, now you're caught. But if you did perform the load test, then, you know, that's where we're at. So what we like to do is, when we teach these classes, that's recorded, we'll put it up online. So feel free to go back. We have other classes that are just as interesting as the one we just did here that go into great detail. But we also like to build relationships with a lot of you guys, and also cross-relationship. And before you arrived, we were talking about how the National Fire Escape Association became. It became because nobody was doing anything about it. So all these real estate agencies out there started associations. All these florists started association. And we were just briefly talking, and today we talked about the possibility, and we'll get it going, of a Reg 4 association of the Reg 4 testers. And basically, if that group is 50 or 100 people or 200 people, It's not to go get certified, it's basically to have a place where we can hang out in a coffee place and, drink some coffee and start having a website that you can have blogs in there and you guys can get to know each other and also, hey, I'm having a problem with this, what did you do and how did I do it? And basically have one collective voice that's only in LA. You can't use it anywhere else. This organization will have no power anywhere else. But the Reg 4 testing is a pretty good system, but with that, you'll be able to cross. So I do fire pumps, I do sprinklers, I do fire escapes, and this is how basically everybody can sort of share into various parts in this business. Because look how big my industry is nationwide. You're just dealing with it in LA. But you were dealing with it not knowing as much as you should know and taking a little bit of risk along with it. So from today on, I can see that you're not gonna take as much risk anymore. You're gonna still do your job, but you're gonna look at it totally different and help educate your client to say, hey, what we used to do before, we were really uninformed, but now that I'm informed, I'm really taking on more liability than I ever wanted to, and this is what you got. The law is very clear. The authority having jurisdiction shall accept by law test or other evidence of strength. We've never given them any other evidence of strength or a load test, and yet our signature kept going on the bottom of these documents. And the only thing that saved us is the fact that we don't have fires every day. But if you put every building in LA through at least one fire every year, mandatory, like they set your building ablaze, you'd have a lot of dead people or a lot of dead firemen on the ground because a lot of these would not fail. It doesn't happen. So just like the parachutes in planes don't get tested, but 40 years later you put it on, you jump out, you go, you're like, holy. How come nobody tested that parachute? Because nobody jumps out of airplanes. So that's where we are today. So education, and we appreciate you guys coming down. We're supposed to have some more people, but they all plan to use the sunny day to do other things.
We're the lucky ones.
They're the lucky ones. Well, again, you'll be able to share with some of your friends because a lot of you guys know other Reg 4 guys. The video will be on a book. We'll send these books out to other people with this video. And if you have any further questions, we'll be in touch with you to build relationships with you and build relationships with you anyway. So that's our thing. And if you guys want to give each other cards.
Thanks. I went off and forgot to grab it. I'm sorry.
Send me an email.
I will.
All right.
And then that's what it's all about. It's about building relationships because we all have something in common, and that is there's a lot of Reg 4 activity going on in LA, and it's only a matter of time before LA is making the jump. Right now, you see the economy percolating a little up, right? And
Well,
when
it's
that
not just
happens,
LA too, because I noticed you're from Anaheim, but it's all over, the whole LA County, Orange County, the Inland Empire. This is a huge area, and everybody has fire protection. We don't only just work in LA. The majority of our work is obviously because it's just a huge market, but we also work Ventura County and Orange County everywhere. So
and that's why we did this class is to
you
help.
try and get this word out to people. It's going to only help.
Yeah, and we want to become we want to become that arm of you. Instead of you setting up a fire escape division, we are your fire escape division. We're here to help you basically cover that and be the experts in that. And also,
Like I've been told 100 times, I'm just a tester, so.
No, you're an engineer.
I'm already Reg 4, I'm a tester.
right, so never call yourself.
The smoke, the flames, and the frightened faces. All in a firefighter's line of duty. But Chief William Hitchcock remembers the night it wasn't the fire that almost stopped him,
Oh, I was scared to death.
but the fire escape that broke underneath him.
Where the railing just came away from the building.
And our investigation found across Massachusetts more unsafe fire escapes. Rusty, deteriorating, crumbling, broken. And what state officials didn't know, the system they set up to keep fire escapes safe is also falling apart.
The potential ramifications are disastrous.
So let's look at this one. This expert ironworker is licensed to build, maintain, and inspect fire escapes. So that over here? For months, we examined dozens of them with alarming results.
Looking at this today, would this pass inspection?
No.
In dormitories, at theaters, at homes, and apartment buildings.
Rust is actually eating away the metal of the fire escape.
Correct.
And the bottom line?
It'll get weak and then eventually it'll fall.
This one has rotted connections. This one missing bolts, twisted metal.
Would the stairs come down?
No, never come down.
This one a broken tread.
So how dangerous is it for the people inside this building?
This fire escape is definitely going to put somebody either in the hospital or it's going to put somebody in
in a cemetery.
Fire escapes are so critical. The state building code requires they be certified for structural adequacy and safety every 5 years. But our investigation found that safeguard is simply being ignored. Here's proof. We chose fire escapes at random in Boston, Somerville, Cambridge, Worcester, and here in Quincy. We checked building department files,
But there's no fire escape certification.
Not in this file.
to see if building owners had submitted their mandatory inspection reports.
There's no certification in this one either.
Right.
Bottom line, not one we checked in Quincy had been certified as safe. And the director of inspectional services admitted because of staffing shortages, the city has no idea how many other fire escape owners are breaking the rules.
And as a result, do you know how many fire escapes in your city are safe or not?
Well, I don't know.
In Worcester, not one we checked was certified. In Somerville,
No.
4 more fire escapes,
Did it fall through the cracks? Yeah.
not one up-to-date certification. And again, no system for keeping track.
How can they get away with that?
I guess that the shortest answer of all is because we don't have the resources to sit here and follow up on these things.
If structural deficiencies are reported, local building inspectors can actually evacuate residents until repairs are made.
Would you talk to us on camera about this? No?
But when we surveyed 24 more communities, most admitted they had no idea how many fire escapes were certified. In Taunton, inspectors told us they haven't seen a certification in 25 years. Northampton officials said it's a cold day in hell when that happens. In Cambridge, too, not one of our test buildings was certified, and the official in charge would not come out to discuss it. In Boston, where there are more than 8,000 fire escapes, again, according to inspectional services, not one we checked was certified. Officials know they are required to enforce the building code, but they admit they don't always know if owners are breaking the law.
The building code is being ignored.
Right, but it's difficult to write a violation when you don't have knowledge of something like that.
But state officials say for a critical issue like this, communities should know. And they warn the Massachusetts building code is not optional.
Does it worry you that these fire escapes are not being certified?
This is an important issue and should not be ignored.
That's because after the smoke and flames begin, it'll be too late to learn you've got no way out.
I can't stress it enough, Hank, that these things have to be maintained and someone's got to be watching.
As a result of our investigation, state officials will now issue an alert to local inspectors. Meanwhile, if there's a fire escape on your home or office, you can contact your local building department to make sure it's properly certified. In the newsroom, I'm Hank Philippi Ryan.